Okay, good day to everyone. My name is Stefan Markovic, and I'm from the Ministry of Conservation, and I will be your leader for today's project. I really wish you all welcome in this small group, so feel free to be relaxed and to have motivated questions after our specific presentations. We have 9 minutes for this session. Maybe it's less. Today. Let's start online, so we have follow and with us. And I suggest to have these 3 presentations each way, following the reference after and the patient. We need to last for around 15 minutes, but we have only 3 presentations in this session, so it gives us more flexibility for the reference from project. Also, I suggest that all of you write down questions, and when you ask questions, please introduce yourself, and then we'll find some more relationship between the experts in the words. Also, our followers will be involved and write their questions in the chat, and if there's a question online, and also ask them to our questions. So without any further ado, I suggest we come to the presentations. Our first panelist is Ms. Laura Delminico. She's an economic analysis director general of regional policy of the European Commission, where she is responsible for carrying out quantitative analysis on various aspects linked to the economic development of regions and cities. Her presentation will be about the key findings from the 8th Cohesion report. So this is for the next 15 minutes.
Good morning, everybody. So what we're going to present in the next 15 minutes, the key findings of the of the report, joint work with my colleague Magdalena, who is now still in Brussels. And I will try to summarize in 15 minutes, more than 60 pages of charts, maps, and tables. I think we have one of the first sessions outside the town, so there's a brief introduction on the Cohesion report. Cohesion report is a treaty requirement, so every 3 years the Commission is asked to report to regions and countries about the state of societies, territorial, social, and economic parties across the regions. And we have a recommendation, which is like a big requirement. I'm going to take the highlights, but usually accompanied by a more extensive research of 200 plus pages of further analysis. And in the next 15 minutes, I will talk about like the main findings of the chapter on more social in Europe. It's a chapter where we analyze basically the trends, of disparities in terms of employment, unemployment, gender gaps, poverty, or even education and skills and migration. I can tell you that these are all data which do not reflect the current situation in Ukraine, and only partially capture the impact of the COVID crisis, because regional statistics come with a certain delay compared to the national statistics in Eurostat, because we need a normalization throughout all the National Statistical Institute report on Eurostat on common data. So the first one I will show you are just 3 snapshots of 3 main labor market indicators. So we have unemployment rate in 2020, the unemployment rate, and the early leavers from education and training. The maps are the last 2 regions, and we can see that in terms of unemployment rate, In 2020, at the EU level, we had like 72% of people aged 20-64 were employed total, so male and male, but with the large disparities across EU regions, with a north-south divide in Italy, for instance. Here, the map means like that the higher those who are in green is have reached and when we want they target 75% of employment rate. And then the darker means further you are away from the target. So lower employment rates are mainly in Spain, south of Italy, with some of the Eastern European regions. When you look at unemployment rate, you also have sort of a north-south divide, where the highest unemployment rate, which means the darkest scholars, are the ones mainly in Spain, and then Greece, and these parties are decreasing, but still the impact of the 2008 crisis in this case is evident in the maps. The impact of the COVID for 2020 was not because the recession programs by the governments, jobs were not. It's not like the 2008 crisis where a lot of jobs were lost. During the COVID crisis, through the intervention of the member state, the European Commission, the intervention. The SURE program, we could keep some of the jobs that we don't see still in the statistics. It was mainly the change in the amount of output and was mainly in the amount of hours worked by female workers, who really gave away a lot of working hours to stay home during the lockdowns. And the third map, it's a snapshot of the disparities in early leaders from education and training. This is a very important indicator because a lot of the studies in economics, especially economics, show that having dropping out from school, especially in their early levels of schools and early years, brings to low quality jobs, lower employment rates. And indeed, what we found that there is not only a gap between NUTS regions, so we have like east, west, north, south, but also between territories, where the early leavers are higher in rural, more than in cities and more urbanized areas. And on top of that, those who drop out from school in rural areas have even a lower employment rates. So it's not a problem of dropping out of school, but if you drop in rural areas, you're also less likely to find a job. So it's not a double sort of problem. It's even a transition problem to transition. Then what we have finally, this time we have more detailed data about poverty at the regional level. Year after year, we can more populate those maps and have regional data. So we also see there are high disparities in terms of risk of poverty, between regions in Europe, but the issue becomes very important with the urban-rural divide. And the urban-rural divide is not the same across the world. So if you look at the averages, we have everything, cities and rural areas have like for around 20%. But then if we move like to former European member states, that's mainly a rural problem. So the gap between poverty between urban and rural is really big, while in Western EU regions, it's in cities that you have very important pockets of poverty. So it's not only an issue that is between regions, between urban and rural, but urban and rural located in different parts of the EU. So again, a multi-dimensional type of problem. And also, it's very valuable to see that in where high-skilled workers tend to move, where they move. And this chart shows basically the proportion of population with a tertiary education in 2020. The red dots are, let's say, in the capital regions, so last two regions where the capital is located. So then you have the average, the national average, the EU average, and then the small dots are that we either not speak last regions outside of the capital region. So you see that in almost all counties, few exceptions, tertiary educated tend to capital cities. But the problem was meant for that not an achievement. We could rely on this 2015 and 18 on a disaggregation of the visa, which is basically this assessment on the city assessment that you it's a 15 years old group, it's managed by OECD. And looking they looked at the sex performance between urban and rural areas. And in 2018, they looked at the performance by school location, urban and rural areas. So the urban is the orange dot. So you see that almost in all counties, you tend to achieve more in schools which are located urban areas. And this is, if you look into the reports of OECD, they even after controlling for the initial condition of the school, the location, and the family where it's come from, still you find this difference of performance in urban areas. Then we've seen there is a big differences in employment rates. The employment rates, there's a big especially between less and more developed regions, and this can be partially explained, but even some explained by female participation to the labor market. So since a few years, and this is the real first edition, we are measuring not gender gap. I mean, we take a very much extreme position. We look about the achievement of women in the EU regions and disadvantage of women across EU regions. When we talk about that achievement, we talk how women are doing in my regions compared to the regions where women achieve the most across 33 indicators. While when we look at disadvantage, we basically look at the distance between men and women. But when women achieve more than the men, that's considered as zero, set as zero. It's just a book of working on disadvantage. So it's really a very much feminist type of approach. And here again, you can see that there are very much big differences, but also that here in this third map, but maybe very much important for this conference, we look at how women do according to the stage of development, whether the region in which they live is less developed, a more developed, of a transition region. So in terms of achievement, we see that women tend to achieve the most in the more developed regions. The question report will have the list of all the 33 indicators, how they split across dimensions. Now, I don't have time, so I encourage you to read the question report. You can find it here at the entrance. Well, when we talk about disadvantage, the picture is a little bit more scattered, but still, again, you see that in some dimensions, like the power, how women do it in terms of having, let's say, positions in national, local, and municipal governments, and in the work and money position, how they left behind, in particular in the less developed regions. Have the time? Okay, 5 minutes. So then we have looked at migration. So we don't have like information about flows, but with migration, we see that migrants, especially both the ones who are from another country, so within Europe migration, and from outside the EU countries, are mainly concentrated in northwestern EU regions. And I mean, especially the presence of non-EU country, it's very important to monitor because in some studies we have done within the Commission, we have looked at this anti-EU sentiment, this complex sentiment, tend to be higher in those regions where there is a higher percentage of non-EU migrants, especially outside the cities. And cities like seem to be more used, let's say, to have a sort of a mix, a melting pot of nationalities. But when you move outside of the city, of the urban areas, the high presence of migrants, especially from the EU, can drive some urban and rural discontent, rural mainly. And we also see that when we dig into the regions, migrants tend to mainly be in cities. So they especially non-EU migrants are concentrated in cities, and they share in the between 2015 and 20, so the migration crisis to the latest year we had, they tend to more increase in cities, and they tend to have basically when EU migrants they tend to have the same employment rates that the locals, also because I mean, we have a freedom of movement, the common labor market in Europe. When it moves to non-EU migrants, despite progress, they have very much lower employment rates, and especially the female employment rates tend to be very low of the non-EU migrants. And they have double the risk of being in a situation of poverty and social exclusion. And then we have another composite indicator. This is a composite indicator that tries to go beyond the GDP, so it tries to look at how regions are progressing in terms of societal progress, and we measure basically things that go to shelters, student system, or to freedom of speech, or to more sophisticated dimension of social freedom. And we see indeed that this is the 2020 edition. We are planning to publish in 2024 a new edition. And we see map east, west divide, but also south and north Italy, south of Italy. But what is important is that if we look at the three-dimensional in this index, it's not like it's sort of another. You go from the simple like dimension of social progress, which I think list because I don't know if I have, which is about water and sanitation, shelter, crime severity, which is the basic index. We see that more or less regions in the EU tend to score green. So there you have achieved a sort of the variation, but you achieve a sort of like of fulfillment. But when you slowly get to the more sophisticated components, which are, for instance, access to basic knowledge, health, wellness, and then at the end, in some image, we talk about tolerance, access to advanced education, or freedom to speech. We see that actually mainly Nordic countries, some French regions are the ones green that perform the best. So, and even if, when we basically here we have done an aggregate of the performance index and some dimension according to your like in a moderate regions, transitional regions, and a lot, and you can see that in the basic, I mean the gaps are not big, but as you move to the opportunity index, the gap, especially between the less developed regions and the more developed regions, tend to increase. So to conclude, so the starting improvements to cohesion, so employment and employment has reached the record highs. I also have the new figures. I mean, we're not close to 75%, we're moving closer to that. There are many territorial disparities. Territorial disparities are not only across the EU regions, but also across different types of territories. We don't talk only about NAST region, we talk about the cities, and to work, we talk about outermost regions. There will be a focus, there's an inclusion report about social dimension, economic of outermost regions in the EU. And but I think that there is many different disparities that remain in terms of poverty, in terms of advanced skill education, migration, long life learning, and familiar achievement and disadvantage. So at this point, the education policy is paramount importance to try to reduce this gap. We have seen already, it's been discussed this morning, our education policy was like an emergency tool to face COVID pandemic, the aggression in Ukraine, but we also have to ensure that education policy it's driving the green and digital transition in a way not to leave any place and any people living in places behind in terms of skill, employment, but also work related type of policy. Thanks.
Thank you. So yeah, if there are any questions, I believe the free to speak, of course, and it's the rights more today. I can also check on the Zoom call if there's some questions online. Maybe. Yeah, sure. You can have to.
It's not one specific graphic to show, because it surprised me for the reality I know from my own country. That graphic is shown that emphatically shown that the migrants live in cities. I've spoken too much. The reality I know is what in the media is migrants basically working in agriculture, thank you. So, what's the data being built on?
We are talking about NAST regions. So in a NAST region, you can have both the city and the surrounding area. So it's average out. When we talk about cities, no, then we look at I think the migration by the urbanization. So it's cities, towns, suburbs, and the areas. Yeah, but this is our averages.
Yeah, but what data is it built on?
Yes, they were for survey. So it's
Next time, try to cross it. We go back for they are very good data in that.
yeah, but it's at the next two level or
No, there are movements, there are entries, there are.
That's country level.
Yeah,
Yeah, but
it's like security and defense
Yeah.
level, but they are very limited.
you know, I don't want, we need to go to the regional,
Yeah.
so it's,
They are.
okay.
Thank you very much. Well, I am from Turkey, so I didn't see, of course, our results here, but we have some difficulties when we have NUTS 2-level data. We face the same problems. For instance, within the NUTS region, we also have the disparities, like town beside town, we see a disparity that, for instance, we talk about Turkey, in north west Turkey, we have Marmara region, but within the region, we have two towns. They are actually neighbors, but one town is even poorer or most disadvantaged from the southeast Turkey. Like this kind of disparities even exist within the region. This is why the NUTS 2-level also sometimes make it difficult to understand, especially when we talk about migration, women, labor, and etc.
Which I mean, this year getting better and better. I mean, before, I mean, I always said, I like to say the story when I started my PhD, so it was 2003 or 4, and we had GDP per capita and that's the level. So the only two people just like playing around GDP. And now, actually, I mean, we have a lot more and a lot more. I mean, I think that we have now the functional urban areas, which are like, I mean, they've been approved, endorsed by the Eurostat, so we can look at the core cities, not the surrounding area, but we are moving also towards the functional urban areas. So functional urban areas are dominating because we know that the rural areas by themselves makes a difference. There are rural areas which is very close to a town or a suburb or town, let's say center or a middle-sized cities or a rural area which is remote. So I mean, now the analysis are getting further and further. We need to persuade national statistical offices to collect more and more data, like the gender equality index. You will see that we don't have any data about the outermost regions, for instance, in France. That's because the data are not collected. So when we go to UCL, go to something, then so it's things are getting better also in eliminating those to go maybe further down than us too. I know. But it's moving in the direction. And I mean, the new big data, I mean, we have more and more like all surveys. For instance, for quality of life, we now report to surveys and we survey respondents in cities. And then we go to Turkey. So we have a lot of like socio-economic type of dimensions that we can look into cities. And then we can compare them to the national averages because we are copycatting some of the questions which are available and collected at the county level. So we are moving the direction. And
Okay. Any other question? That's it. Thank you once again.
thanks.
Our next presenter is Mr. José Pereira from Portugal, from Pure Defense.
Yeah.
Together with Mr. Fernando Gaspar, wrote the paper, and we will see in a minute the presentation about the insights from the cohesion policy and the impact of the war in Europe, problematics and challenges. So,
Yeah.
Mr. Pereira, for you. The next one, just the next, yeah, this one. No, previous.
Well, good morning. Yesterday, more or less like about this time, I was in Kathmandu, Nepal. Now I'm here, maybe tired, but if you want to see a country that has no access to cohesion funds, go to Nepal, or else go to Bangladesh, or else go to Pakistan, I would call India, because India is now the power. And see what is happening. And see the difference between Nepal and between our very calm, very calm even Turkish. Nepal is for long struggle with IMF intervention, with MCC intervention. I don't know if you know what MCC. It's like an American program facility for helping the underdeveloped and poor countries. They are massive. I go to the north of Nepal. It was a 12 hours trip on off road. I love it because I love the Sahara Desert, so it's nice. But if you live there and you want to visit, you're there. So, first of all, this was my introduction. How does it work in Europe? Before I was in Euro Defense, that is mainly a think tank on geopolitical, economy of war, green defense, and stuff like that. I was a former director, marketing director. I think it still is the biggest retail bank in Portugal. My main function was to deal with credit lines to SME. Of course, credit lines were connected with cohesion funds, and I've dealt with that for a long time. So cohesion funds is, of course, a big help to places like my home. Maybe you know Madeira Island. Some years ago, like 20, 30 years, like Professor. Some years ago, you don't know, but you will. Some years ago, you have to take more or less like 5 to 6 hours going from one part of the island to the other part. Today, you have highway, you have tunnels, and you go there in 20 minutes. Of course, we can say, wait, there's only 18,000 people living there. Why to spend so many money for 18,000 people? A storage, the other. I invited everyone to go to a storage. I think that 2 months ago is the same. So this is what cohesion fund does to peripheral and to peripheral region. Is there anyone here from Spain? Yes, Canarias, Bulgaria, the same, right? So money is coming to these places, and I will talk about that later. Money is coming to these places and is really leveraging the development of these places where it's needed, like roads, like hospitals, like schools, like everything else. Okay, so let's step a little bit further. About COVID. In Portugal, I think we have a very good strategy on COVID attack. My brother is the general from Portuguese Army, and he was responsible for COVID strategy on the army. They built more or less 60 campaign hospitals. They have built more or less like 600 hospital beds, like in municipalities, like in clubs, like near the hospitals. I think everybody, I've done the same in your countries, but this was very relevant. Where did it come the money? Cohesion funds. First, 2020, then already in the pack of 21 to 27. I worked for the bank 30 years. I never saw before, and I say this lots of times, I never saw this thing before. Every time the government rules a new restraint law, in the same day that the law becomes, there is a supporting grant to SME companies and to companies. Believe me, I never saw this before. If you have a restaurant, you have to close like 3 p.m. like that. You can go all night and make your money. So there is the support. for your company. If you got to make people out because you have not much movement to have 10 employees, you must have 3 or 4, you have money for you have money for the guys. If the guys have a mortgage for their house, they have a currency, what's the name? I don't get it. 2 years to not pay the mortgage. Where comes the money? Provision fund. 3.7 trillion euros are coming from provision funds to help those countries, our countries about COVID. Very different ways. Direct grants, macroeconomic tools, European Central Bank instruments, lots of ways that they can buy countries that they can. What did we get out of COVID? First, and Mrs. van der Leyen and my friend Mrs. Elizabeth Ferreira, that I know for a long time, they are told about it. First, recovering families' power. Second, recovering SMEs' competitiveness. Third, sorry. Yes, face energy costs and inflation. Third, helping Ukrainian refugees. No, that's 4. And 5, supporting incremental defense investments after strategic compass. That was a document, very important strategic document that was set on 21 March 2022. Okay, just a few notes on this. About inflation, and we wrote that on our paper, about inflation, about energy prices. I think we are working on free markets. We are working on liberal markets. We cannot stand for a higher increment of prices of electricity, of oil, of whatever, that are based in speculation, nothing more. We cannot see that price rising, and at the same time, we are taxing the extra profits of the companies. Professor Paul Stiglitz said that maybe 2 weeks ago. He said, we are at war. We have to have an economy at war. And on an economy at war, we have fixed prices. Every week, Digicom should fix the prices for every country in Europe, right? Oil prices, energy prices, electricity prices, because all the rest will come, because the prices are not only inflation economic, they are inflation also industrial production. So we are hitting it for 2 ways, through consumption and through the products we buy that are made with low cost. You see? So there has to be the way, and there's 2 ways. Or the European community will do this, or populists will take this as a flag. And people will go after the one that first take this right away. So we have to be very, very careful on that. Right? Now, main cohesion, am I okay with that? It's fine. Okay, main cohesion bills. Hello, I'm the main big cohesion bills, digital transition. I hope that Friday I will present my PhD thesis My PhD thesis will be on digital transformation on SAP development. And you know, digital is very good, but digital has a big problem. Digital is putting people away from the institutions. Digital is putting people away from other people. And but for that, we are already 2 years of COVID. We don't need more. We need human contact. We need human heart. So we have to have a great balance between digital and personal relationship. We can see business like another number. We need to see people like other people. And public service has to know that. A guy that comes to administrative situation, administrative office, is a guy like me. He's a customer, but he don't pay. But he's still a customer. I have to drink more, okay? That's what we used to do now. Second, green transition. How can we have logical and clear green transition when we have now very problems with materials primas? And commodities, because the sea traffic, because there was a law that obligates the guys from the ship to use a certain time of petrol, and then they don't want to pay more than the law of the traffic. Yeah, you don't have. You want to buy a house, today you pay like 100 for that material, the other day you pay like 500. This has to be very much well simplified. We cannot go after a flag if that flag is not as equal. You see? So, supply war economy I've already spoke. Supply chain. Turkey, where Turkey. I don't like yoga, but in the other hand, I like it very much because it's clever. And it's not on the follow of no one. He's dealing Putin with the only way you can do Putin, like this. Eyes in the eyes, I am equal to you. Okay. So, last but not least, challenges. Working Commission. Oh boy, this is gonna hurt. Make it simple process. Make it simple. Second, make it clear. We have so many laws. People don't understand that law. They don't nothing but people they don't understand. There's a thing called European Defense Fund. What is that? Nobody understands that. There's always the same companies that go to that fund. And then they say, we only have 18% of the fund spent. Of course, that's not user-friendly. Be user-friendly to SMEs, to families, to the low level of the guys in the society. Okay, make it fast. Make it fast. The process enters, the process is approved, the process is evaluated, the situation is paid, and the process is closed. 1 month. 1 month. 1 month, no more. You see, that's how I do. When I make a project, when I am a company guy, I make a project, I want the money now. Or I'll go to less burdens, much. You will be fighting. I will. You don't know what's happening everywhere. You see, avoid external constraints. On defense, you create something like ESG criteria, very based on United Nations criteria for green. You know what? ESG criteria makes like no bank will finance European defense company because of that. Zero, no one. However, Americans don't follow ESG. So why do you do it? I don't understand. Somebody someday will explain that to me. I'm almost there. Foreign affairs. The last one. If Americans have something like MCC that facilitates now to be building two military bases in Nepal, and we don't want military bases, why don't we have something like that? Why don't we use our money? And we know we have lots of money in the BCA and the European Central Bank because the basal agreements and stuff like that. Why don't you use our money to help countries that will come near us, that will start to be operating? Oh, sorry, I'm so sad that I can talk more, but maybe you are right now like that. So, thank you.
That was very close. We can also stay open and anybody. Also, if you have any questions for Mr. Pereira or the Dutchman, here with us today.
Thank you very much. Konstantinos Anex from the Ministry of Finance of Cyprus. I have two questions. First of all, you referred to the controls made by DG.com in order to fix the prices. Do you think that this could be realistic? Because I was a little bit surprised. Although I can understand the rationale behind control inflation through price fixing. In theory.
Yeah.
That's the first question. As regards the second, you refer to some sort of the need to make quicker decisions.
Yeah.
Which I totally agree with you. But unfortunately, the lessons learned suggest that this is a pay for democracy. That in order to make thorough and proper decisions, we need some sort of consultation. European Commission that we love very much, although sometimes makes our life more difficult, has to come with the proposal. Member states should be consulted, European Parliament should be consulted. So if we agree that what we're experiencing is also a war between autocracies and democracies, this is something we have to go through. So my actual question, which is also sort of dilemma in my head, if you allow me, is how can we make this democratically acceptable but much quicker? In a matter. And
I understood the first.
Yeah, okay.
Okay, I will tell you. My bank is the bank, of course, it's very old. The biggest bank, maybe 30 to 40% of market share. Oh, do you really see that in this?
Yes, because of the.
Okay. My bank is a very big bank. Lots of market share, but like big things, truck, you cannot do the turn in a small place.
It's not 3 point.
Yeah. So sometimes we have ideas, and somebody said, "Oh no, let's wait." And then the other guys do it. Okay. And then we are losing. What I said is very relevant. Or we get this flag, or another guys do it. You see, another guys, and you know the kind of guys I'm talking.
Totally understand.
Yeah. So you are, we have to start to show some art. This is an artificial crisis, of course. This is the first. Will we be able to do this? Well, it's better do. It's better. Because the opposite, you see, in England, this winter, the expectations is like 10 million families won't have money to pay energy costs. That's what we want. That's what we all want. I don't know. Second was you don't have to go planning and doing in the same time. You have to planning first, and then you do all that stuff allow me, but I don't like very much the phrase, this is the price you have to pay for liberty and democracy. I've heard it before, and I don't like it very much, sorry.
Right.
I know, but you have to do that first. But you know, politicians, they are always on the run. So first they say, oh, we are going to launch this. Then they start working, and everybody's waiting. You have to change this mindset. First, you plan. First, you do. When everything is ready to go, when you have time to market, then they show this is available today. Then it's time. I know, my friend, I know.
Yeah, I know you know, because that's why it's theory. Just to add it is possible to be faster, to have faster decision making times. We've seen that in the pandemic. We've seen that in the war. When needed, institutions can speed up, and they do. Look, I'm an old school economist. I'm used to work with data from five years ago. That was how I started my career. We built this paper with data from 5 months ago. So not just institutions in European Union, everybody, when in a crisis, finds the way to speed up decision making and actions. And just to finish, your first point about price controls. Look, it's not like we need to invent something. We are inventing now. We are dealing with an inflationary crisis with a war economy without price controls. That's the first. That's what's really new, because every time there was a war, there was price control. So there was nothing new.
Any other questions? There's nothing going online.
Yeah, thanks very much. Of course, we can spend money quickly, and if that was the only issue, then it wouldn't be a problem. But you look at the history of cohesion policy, and the biggest criticisms over the last 20 years have come from, firstly, the fact that it, inverted commas, wasn't sufficiently effective, or seemed to be sufficiently effective, and second, that it was riddled with errors. You go back about 50 years, and the error rate was 50%. Now it's down to under 5%. And the whole budget discharge procedure was damaged. It was the way the budget discharge procedure ran was dominated by discussions about how cohesion policy was fraudulent, what error rate was spending. Now, fraudulent spending was actually very small, but the errors were more significant. And then there was the question of the effectiveness of spending. To me, that issue has also been significantly resolved in the sense that the data now shows us that cohesion policy is increasingly effective, but it has come at the price of layers of regulations and audit exploding. So, I just want to highlight these trade-offs. What's more important? Absorption, regularity, effectiveness. The utopia, of course, all three. Yeah.
I agree with you, but you know what? Our control and fiscalization of cohesion funds is done in Portugal, is done by outsourcing it. Universities outsourcing it. This is not. Then you talk about product, of course, I can buy an outsourcing company and make it working to European community. And I can do whatever I want. That's the problem. And this is Portugal, we are very light. Is there anybody from Italy? Sorry, go to Italy, try it. They are hot stuff. You see? Hungary. You see? We don't know, we don't plan all business plan. You do mostly control through statistical. Actually, what's examples that we need. You see, maybe in 500,000 processes, maybe you control 1,000. It's massive. So you have to be very much effective because the guys who are putting the money, they work it out. And for each default situation, they goes down. And that lots of default situations, there's no yellow. So you're right, but it's important, not for you, maybe for the guys, for the guys, it's important to go more than this time. Sorry.
I see no more hands. So once again, thanks to Mr. Pereira, Mr. Dashwood, for your nice questions. And I propose to get to our last presentation. We have Mr. Pasquale Davici with us today, also from DGUT. He will be presenting the regional dimensions of the COVID-19 pandemic. All the things are relevant for crisis we're facing. So, Pasquale, please.
Thank you. So if you want to continue the discussion also on the implementation, considering this session on research evidence on effective use of cohesion policy in the early afternoon. So I would encourage you to go at that. You will see what some of the research points do. Now what I will focus on is on the regional dimension of the pandemic outbreak. I will first look into the health data, doing it at the regional level, and then quickly go through the main economic implications in terms of employment and GDP. So the early simple presentation, the chapter 1 of the cohesion report. This chapter was illustrated mainly by use that could be with the support of you for the map. And I will present it here with some little updates done. But it mostly presents the narrative of what has happened with the pandemic with break run. So sort of like this. Yes. So this, like you did a tongue card, but I'm just coming here and no. Video, I'm not sure if it would work. No, it didn't work. It's a video. So okay, it's fine. We will do without the video. It was a nice video that was showing outset mortality across European regions evolved over time in Europe. But it's a video that doesn't seem to work with the browser. We can move to it would just show basically how it's playing the chart. It showed how excess mortality that was perceived in basically all regions, but not at the same time, but not to the same extent. So what you have here actually is the measure of excess mortality over the period 2020-2022. This is as a percentage of the average in 2015. And you might be surprised to see that actually the largest impact was in Eastern Europe, basically, if you take a picture of the ball, where also the pandemic rate came quite late. At the beginning, it happened with mostly in the northern Italy, and then in southern Italy, but then it shifted eastern. And overall, the impact I think is clear. Now we don't look at the reasons for this, but probably a combination of the factors I explained, in particular, the healthcare sector for us there is not developed, and in other places, but there can be many other factors, vaccination rates lower, and so forth and so on. But what is important to see that, that all of Europe was impacted, but not to the same extent. Now, I hope I get it right. Yeah. So here you see my geographic region, and it looks like the difference between south, northwest, and eastern, the classification that we use throughout the region report of Laura, not just for this paper. So it basically groups regions and 3 macro regions, the eastern, southern, and northwest. You could argue with it, but it gives a bit of an idea. It's easy to represent classification. And they're both more or less with the same trend. The beginning of the study was mostly in Southern Europe that was impacted by exception. And then at the end of 2020, beginning of 2021, it was mostly Eastern Europe that was impacted. So the impact on health was probably 2 years. Now hopefully things are across the worst is behind them. But it also shows that the geographical excursion maybe, and even in terms of time, the time was not expected. Here you see the Crises index, which is prepared by Oxford. It's a quantitative indicator that shows one number basically how the measures that have been taken by government where. And here again we see a lot of correlation. They were slightly lower in the eastern region in general, but all more or less, they were aligned. And you see they were very high in 2020 and we find that in 2021. And this actually goes up to October 2022. This has been a phase that has been now the measures very high. So now we're almost back to normal. The second part of the presentation looks a little bit at the economic impact. So I think that I like very much this part. It's not about region, it's actually both European and United States, which is very economic area. And you see a huge spike in unemployment in the United States, assuming that quite a bit is not about 4 to 15%. That I think I've ever seen something like that across the board. But the striking difference is in Europe, where it remains stable. And Europe really see the importance of the introduction of short-term working schemes. Even the response to the suspension of the fiscal rules, the adoption of the RRF, the involvement the ECB and other, some member states, even labor markets were promising it's not possible to find people. But with all of this has an impact, and you see the difference between a very flexible labor market and the more of the European social model. Now, what has happened in the US is that as the impact of the crisis, fortunately, quickly declined, and also under decline. And what is interesting to see is that by the end of 2021, perhaps the US economy was a little bit more booming, and so unemployment rate actually went really down, much faster than in the EU. But overall, I think even in the EU, the 6% can compare to what we see, for instance, after the global financial crisis. So a positive story about the pandemic approach, so the huge impact of the heat, unfortunately, on the labor market, thanks to the unprecedented policy measures that were taken, including also the approval of the European recovery facility, but also another election in terms of cohesion policy, labor market. That was really comprehensive. But now here we look at the difference between cities, towns, suburbs, and rural areas against the segregation which you see throughout the report. And this is employment rate. Before we look at it, we have to look at the unemployment rate is the employment rate. This is very important. And here we see that we remain on this table and we really don't see the difference. If you look at the scale, one in rural areas and one really a bit high, the impact again is slightly over the rural areas. That's so small that I think is significant statistically. So overall employment remained high in constant, which is again it's a result of the measures that were taken. Here important changes instead we see during the pandemic. It's on the left-hand side that you have a chart about change in actual hours worked per week in 2020 compared to 2019. And here you see everywhere in Europe, we work less per week, but not to the same extent. So in 2020, it was mostly Eastern Europe and Southern Europe to work less. also because the impact of the pandemic in terms that we're seeing before of health and life and excess mortality, which is a proxy, let's say, also for the growing situation, Thailand started during 2020. Now we don't have the data in 2021 yet. But what I expect to see is that the regions in Eastern Europe that have been impacted most now see the largest impact in the reduction of our number of hours work. So let's see what we have the new chart for the next region report louder. We will certainly update it. And we will see where we have a more picture in the east work. And chart on the right, it's the target that's in the change in the share of people usually working from home. And again, we see a dramatic impact of the pandemic with more people working from home throughout Europe in all regions. Again, this is 2020. It's interesting to see that here you don't see it from this now. The year correlation impact of the pandemic rate because of excess mortality. You see that in Central Europe has seen the highest increase in people working from home, even if the impact is not as strong as elsewhere. So here probably there are other factors explaining from the use of one correctly. And it will be about this with keys that we will. Although this was done at office spectrum for Europe, so we have to see whether they will did not have the comparison. And now in the last part of the presentation, I will look at the impact of tourism, because of course all this restriction in terms of movement of people and across borders that's sometimes even within the country have a huge impact on tourism. So here what you see is the annual number of tourist nights per resident, so it's adjusted by the size of the country and the number of inhabitants. And the blue line is before the pandemic, with people in Cyprus who had 20, whatever, 20 number of tourist nights per resident, and which went from 4 in 2020. So the reduction was huge. It was a bit like this for all countries, but honestly, what I want to show here is that the countries who are relying the most on tourism were the ones in the largest drop. You have a drop in all countries, but of course, about Croatia, of course, because that is impacted the shadow, which again, schedule data, Spain, Bulgaria, Portugal as well. And in the next chart, I show what has happened in 2021. So this is an update compared to what we had in the official report. And luckily, there has been a pickup. So if you see Croatia, for instance, the number of tourist nights per resident went from 22 in 2019 to 10, so it's been drop of 50%. But then in 2021, it went up again to 18. So it picked up. But what we also can see is that we are not yet at the pre-pandemic average. So let's see if tourism hopefully I think it will return, but we're not there yet. So again, interesting to see what we have available and what this will look like. And this is a part of a vulnerability index for tourism, which has been developed by the JRC. And I think we're forthcoming. And basically, what this shows is the darker, basically, color, and the strongest has been the impact of the crisis of tourism. And what they've done is a really nice and very relevant metric for where they control for the stringent index for each region country. And then they showed that the impact of the region was strongest, basically in those regions that had a share of tourism as a share of regional added value that was higher. In those regions that were dependent on foreign demand the most, so the impact was higher. In those regions that could not depend in a demand pool within the proximity. So if you didn't have a demand pool, a large demand pool close to your region, then you were likely to be most impacted by the trend of tourism. So basically all the usual criteria that you would expect. And what I didn't show is also that what really went down at a chart that think dropped is foreign number of nights spent by foreign tourists as a share of total. So domestic tourism was held up decently after the industry index went a little bit down. But what really was impacted a lot was the share of tourism for growth. So of course, this is in line with the chart that we showed before. The countries like Cyprus and Malta that rely a lot on tourism for the most, and then also what you see from this chart is that they're very tough. And what I like about this chart is now that we have the chart on GDP impact of the pandemic in 2020. This is just a change 2018 and you basically it's very similar to the chart that we have here with vulnerability. So the impact was really large. Now, what I expect to see for us for 2021 is a little bit more of an impact for Eastern Europe, but this will be known only next year in February, right? So we have the new day coaching. And then no, I didn't. So I'll stop here. This was another presentation. But if you have any questions, I'm happy to have a bit of a discussion with you. Thank you.
Thank you very much for the presentation. Me again. Well, I mean, did similar research for Turkey and also in tourism and industry sector, how they've been affected by the COVID-19 crisis and how they are actually picking up in 2021 and 22. And the things we have found in our work, in field level work, is that there are some other impacts for the recovery of the tourism sector, especially because of devaluation, for instance, for Turkey, because the money has devaluated and we received a lot of tourists and some country preferences and different tourists started to come to Turkey. So in your presentation, you talked about mostly about the COVID crisis impact. Have you seen other effects for instance, picking up or some country differences after the COVID-19, how it affected? Because it's not only the COVID-19 now we're talking about the war, we're talking about the energy crisis, inflation, and devaluation in some countries, and etc. Thank you.
Maybe we can take a couple of questions and then.
Yeah.
Simone Gianni, School of Economics. Thank you very much. Really interesting. I was just wondering what you were saying at the very end. Do you have any kind of picture about tourism attractiveness, not only compared to domestic tourism, but foreigners intra-EU and foreigners extra-EU?
We can also do
Thanks for a really interesting presentation. Of course, the United Kingdom is sadly not included on those maps, but there's some interesting data that's published last week by the National Statistical Agency in the UK. And it showed that there's been a very significant increase in the inactive population by about 500,000. I mean, really significant. And there's a bit of a puzzle as to why that is. About a fifth is thought to be long COVID, so people whose illnesses are a result of coronavirus. There's also a problem with capacity in the health service. And so there's delays in people from COVID because of tightness of the labour market in public services. Also interestingly, it looks as if people might have taken the decision during the COVID period to retire, that they're changing in sort of thinking about work-life balance. And anecdotally, we know how this will from communities. But it's much more powerful, and particularly in the black labour market, it's really significant. To what extent are you seeing something similar across the EU?
maybe I'll take this first. Maybe
Because 15 minutes more, so.
okay. Thanks a lot. So maybe let's start from the last one, and then we can more to the questions related to business. So thanks for pointing that out. That's a very important point. Maybe also Laura then can say something on the. I didn't show. Yeah, legal participation in this chart, so I should have put in another point. And then it's missing. We should look at that. And what you mentioned, it's actually correct, and I would expect it the impact of this story also in the rest of Europe. The UK would not imagine, but certainly what is happening there might not be unique. Probably since the data that we have, the regional data are a bit, there's always a delay, as we all know. Now we have, I think, 2021. At that point, people were still sort of, they had to work. It was still an emergency situation. But now for 2022 data coming in, I do expect this story to change. That actually it is important to start to reflect about now that hopefully we're out of this sort of crisis response mode, to see what the actual structure impact, the permanent impact of the pandemic would be in the labor market. So, I don't want to give it too much of an optimistic view. I think we did very well in the labor market in 2021, thanks to all the actions that were taken. That were very different from the actions that we took, for instance, after the global financial crisis. And that might explain why unemployment did not pick up massively as it did, for instance, in the US. But the long-term impact, in a way, is still to be seen. On the one hand, and on the other hand, it still depends on how we respond to the policy. So I think this is something really to carefully monitor going forward. Thanks for pointing it out. And in terms of tourism, now unfortunately, I'm not an expert on tourism. I just report what the JRC and I'm not an expert either on this chapter, which I've already reported. I didn't more say, but I do have taken some more info on that one. What thing we just I had additional charts. Yeah. So that's what I have. So I have this number of foreign tourists. The really went down minus 100% like domestic, but then domestic picked up. In the summer of 2020, where foreign, and then foreign tourists sort of pick up again, but they're still below that. Now, in terms of foreign, whether they are from within the EU or outside the EU, I'm not sure if there is a data. That's something to check because it's also linked to the possible impact of exchange rate fluctuation. So when I have an actual evidence on, for instance, tourism from the US, picked up $15, strong dollar. So I would expect that to be a positive driver. As you mentioned, for sure, in Turkey as well, because of the fall in Turkish lira, clearly that might have been an important boost to demand for tourism. Now, I'm not sure this particular pattern was included in the vulnerability index here. I don't think that was an exchange rate fluctuation, but that's a very important. That's why we mentioned it when it's speaking. But for sure, I mean, this is an important thing to monitor going forward.
It's different.
It's very different.
So, what's for regions, particularly the regions that rely a lot on tourism.
Yeah.
I would take that into account in the future. I know you do already too much. But.
No, that's clear. It's one thing that is the tourism from the US, that the tourism is where you play in the value chain of the tourist market. So that's definitely something to monitor. But yeah. But I don't have like the aggregation between non and intra-EU and outside EU, but that's actually a good point. So please at the JRC. I think there are other questions. Where are other questions?
Very quickly, thank you for the presentation. I do like maps. I think they're very informative and they immediately make you think about patterns. So in my institution, we are doing some work on working from home, so remote working. I was particularly interested in your map when you were showing the share of people that now can work from home and how this share increased. And you said something like the patterns are not really that visible, and you are right. But going back to the case of Italy, I was just wondering if you try to correlate that share with public government employment, because that's definitely a factor in Italy. You can see the Lazio region role, but I don't know if it's the same in other European countries. So I was just wondering if you are looking into that, you're planning to look into that.
I'm not planning to look into that, but I'm sure there will be others. Others are, and you're right, and most of what I thought. Okay, then I'll. Maybe not. Okay. That was also, yeah. So here you have, and it's a trend, you're right, that's also what you see my previous well, you see Paris. This maybe in the public sector, it's easier, although I have an actual evidence that, and some in both of my parents, if I would work in the public sector, but the municipal public sector, for them, it was even if they had a certain age, it was anything possible to do smart working because they didn't have infrastructure. And this was in the north of Italy. I don't make it in other places. So yeah, I think in some parts of the public sector, what you see here, it has a really higher share of people working from home. But it would definitely merit a little bit more money in that analysis, especially in the course of 2021 and all prior. And I'm sure this is something that will be looked at in the future, not necessarily by me, but someone in that. What I would actually like to look at, which is this. It's the impact of two different crises on the capital formation, which also perhaps explains why the impact of the pandemic outbreak has not been as large as the impact of the global financial crisis. So this is taken from a recent paper from the DG Active, where they looked into the two crises that impact on convergence in particular, and it's the cumulative change in prospects capital formation is the main measure of investment from 1999. Yeah. So that I think it's good that year because that's the year of the introduction of the euro. So you see that it went up the formation in 2007, then it dropped dramatically after the global financial crisis, and it was even negative for the infrastructure sector, which is the one in yellow. Then it picked up strongly after 2018, and then it dropped after 2020 again. But the difference that we see here is that the drop was temporary and then it went up again. So a very big difference between these two crises is that investment remained high afterwards. And I think this can explain to a large extent why the impact on GDP has been less persistent. Now the question for us, especially for the EU region and for all our communities, is to see what is the impact in terms of convergence across regions. So how this, because this is an aggregate figure at the national level, but we would like to see it's a little bit at the regional level. I know there's always a light, so we'd like to wait a little bit more. But I think this is a key measure to continue to monitor. It's also think it's more related to the discussion that we hear this morning about the future operation, which is made that policy for investment. So what happens there in the future might also affect here. And last but not least, also the general fiscal framework, because of course, what had happened after the crisis, there was a tremendous amount of fiscal consolidation in the years that they've not had until now. But that also explains it's not just cohesion, why investment in the pipe. It's a combination of things. You also think about the monetary policy framework. And another thing to look at is the impact of inflation on all of this. Whether it's temporary, persistent, and I think those are two areas where we were able to reflect the a bit more.
We have time for one more question.
Yeah. For some of them.
If you want to put a question, you will have.
No, just an answer, so.
Okay.
if I don't-
Yeah, we have seen that tourism has been recovering really fast, and if you have data for Croatia for 2022, we would see that your green column even exceeded the blue one. We are really got back, to the old tourist routines, and that's still a question: are these routines really acceptable? Have we missed the chance of changing something? We had time during COVID, we had a pause, and we perhaps could have changed the tourist policies, because what we observe here is sometimes called a refrigerator effect. Tourism froze at certain points because of the cold, and then stood dormant, all the time, and then deep froze again after the COVID crisis and the post-COVID crisis, and then continued from the very same point where it was frozen in the first place. And so it's a question really, did we miss the chance of changing tourism? We all talk all the time that tourism sector has a lot of negative features, ecological and social, et cetera. So again, have we missed the chance of restructuring tourism and making it a more acceptable sector?
Yeah, I mean, maybe short answer from my side, and then I will let our complement session with the core market. This is an offer an expert on the per se. My impression is that, from what I can see, is that you're largely right. There is a strong impact of tourism that could have given us the chance a little bit to change the model in some cases. But it's also true that this structural change normally takes time. So even if there is a will to do it, perhaps it's something that might take 5 or 10 years and a lot of cooperation. And the hope is that the current programming period could be maximum opportunity to start medium-term strategy in the future to have more stable in those cases where it's needed the tourist industry. And in general, this is a bit of a point. I mean, like tourism is one example. There are many other areas where did we take do we make the most out of this crisis in general? So maybe smart working is another area to how we see the relationship with work. Also fiscal policy, the response has been very different. The monetary policy at the EU level with the RRF report. So it does seem like implication rethink beyond sector policies a lot of things. And of course, this has been only increased by the recent geopolitical instability and energy instability due to conflict between Ukraine and Russia. I think that all of these events do force us to rethink. Now, we haven't seen a dramatic change yet, but I do see some signs of starting to think about this matter very differently compared to the past. So on that ground, I'm quite optimistic. On the other hand, it is true that there's still a lot to do. So that's also why it's what we could be here and your own different views and start our reflection about the future. But we now have to leave the floor to Laura.
Of course, but it also sounds discouraging in your lives. Suppose that we don't need 10 years of crisis to start doing something. Oh, okay,
That's
we
true.
can continue.
That's true, but if you look at the dating prices, for instance, I think the response is very different. So what makes me a little bit optimistic personally is that I see, there will be a lot of cooperation and there will be a lot, even if you look at the prevailing narrative of doing things together. And so I see this as a point. I know, of course, it's a starting point, not the end point. I think we have covered some ground in the last 10 years. Now, of course, we could have done it even without a crisis, but then that we can change. But I will not defer to Laura, maybe more.
Sorry.
And also,
just like to, just there was one information so much like about like the certain videos in the UK, and I was wondering like I'm a big fan of the additional indicators for employment that goes beyond the unemployment rate, which now I'm talking about the storage people or the ones who are underemployed, they work part time but they don't have any job. So if this maybe you can explain something that maybe the labor force is less because more people are going out of the labor force, and then explains also the last thing there is happening in the evolution and employment rates in the US versus Europe. I remember from the past when we used to work for the Director General of Employment, it's measured in a different way. So basically, the trends in the decline in employment rate in the US and in Europe should be read with a caution, because I think if there's something about like the active labor force how it's measured, we tend to be registered when the US they go in and out. If I remember correctly, then we'll go back to the notes. But always there is like that's how we were explaining. So that's something that to look at what happened after the COVID. Like we know that, for instance, the labor markets, we don't have many indicators at the regional level over that go beyond the employment rates. We can see this labor markets like as a basically, I can tell another dog, this was a statistics that was not included in the Eurostat Commission statistics from the regional level, but as we basically bother so much Eurostat with the multiple requests, sometimes you can wrong and put in the official statistics. Now you can have labor markets like at the regional level in the Eurostat. But you can see in some countries the proportion is different. Like in the Netherlands, labor markets like as we have the unemployment, as it's a higher role than mine. Then you have like the involuntary and part-timers, which are involuntary, those are discouraged, and those who are seeking for a job, but they say for the moment they interrupted the seek because they're looking for the outcome, like the job interview, or because they're like paid on maternity leave. You see that basically this labor market is like in some member states, like in the Netherlands, is mainly made by unemployment, but in other member states, which are mainly like Greece, Italy, it's mainly those who are not unemployed, so the ones who are partially detached in the labor market, that needs to be like not back to the labor market, which are untapped potential labor force like the women. So there's a different, like, so this can explain about the tourism, whether they're like missing what the question from Mr. Marino, if it's from inside or outside you. I don't think we have this information. Maybe we can go, but I need to discuss with the colleagues in the JRC, whether you look at city tourism. Against city tourism, maybe I don't know. Your experience me the city tourism may attract more from outside the EU than let's say outside of the city tourism.
And I'm not next.
No, just like this.
And I have no idea, but I'm very
I'm thinking the city tourism and then have like a signal from outside the EU more than outside the city to the characters.
I'm not sure even now, even right in the old Turkey, we have a lot of.
I mean,
as many other countries.
But I was like,
I have no idea, but it's really important to know.
like hearing stories from colleagues how nice was to go to Bruges recently because there was a tourist because Nelly was so maybe then this like it was like a really high
Yeah, I think it's
I think the stringency measures could be presented with the stringency measures from inside or outside the EU. I don't know, maybe this could be, I mean, this is discussed, it's nice that discussing there. And about the people working from home, I mean, the man that Azerbaijan, I think the OECD has done some work about like the workability of some jobs, and then you have people who are rural divided in terms, but at the same time, I mean, okay, cities are not prepared to switch to remote working, but at the same time, it's a city where you have a lot of people necessary workers and then so the ones who cannot teleport, like the people who work from hospitals.
Yeah.
So
necessary factor.
yes, so they special workers. I miss the term. Yes. So that's the you can see the rural divide, and then it's the map show that the workability was highest basically in capital cities, which are more prepared to switch, and those who don't like indeed the governmental workers.
Thank you. Just please, let's be short.
Yeah,
because
very,
we're-
very short.
And 1 minute before we.
It's only mark senior relation in Japan. We can see another aspect from job working from home, from remote work. Now, for example, we see another aspect, we are saving energy. Simply, there is all government institutions in the capital of Lithuania or in the central towns which are in private. We simply work from home to save energy in our houses, governmental houses, to save, water and everything, and because the electricity prices and the energy prices are so high. This is another aspect that I'm going to like to push, not only from COVID.
Thank you for the last comment also, so, I suppose we all, we know the hands for our presenters. So, have a good rest of the day, with the conference time, and have a good break. Thank you.
Thank you.